Assalamu alaikum. How are you guys? Grade 6. I hope you are okay and in good health and safe. Today we're gonna talking about the lesson number 2 in chapter 1 that's talking about two big phenomena in physics or motion that's called speed and velocity. So lesson number 1, that's yesterday we're talking about the describing the motion and how can describe in objects in motion. Today in this video we talking about the speed and velocity, and there is a big difference between speed and velocity, and this is two quantities that describe the motion. So we can starting in point number 1 in this video. How do you calculate the speed? How I can calculate the speed of any object in motion? So the speed of an object is the distance that object moves per unit of time. Any units of time, like minute, seconds, any units of time. So speed is type of rate, just rate. So the speed is just rate. And to calculate the speed of an object, divided the distance that object travels by the amount of time it takes to travel that distance. So this is be written was an equation. This is equation. So this is the equation for speed, for calculated the speed. So speed equal distance per time. In the sample, S equal D per T, and the speed that's measured by units for SI units or International System of Units by meter per second, meter by second or per second. Again, speed or the equation for speed equal distance per time. In the symbol, speed equal D per T, and unit for measuring the speed is meter by second. Excellent. So we have some names of speeds called an instrument's speed. The speed by or at which an object is moving at a given in state an object. So in status speed, that speed at which object moving and given in states time. So we can watching the relationship between three factors there: distance, speed, and time. And this is the mini equation for this is relation between together: speed, distance per time, or time equal distance per speed, and distance equal speed per time. Again, we can remember to illustrate speed on a status in time that a moving object speed may change. So to calculate the average speed of an object divided the total distance traveled by the total time. So we can calculate the total distance per total time to make the total speed or the instantaneous speed. So again, that's instantaneous speed that objects travel many or different distance and different time. So to calculate this is speed or instantaneous speed, we should calculate the different distance per different time to make the instantaneous speed. Again, the SI or International Units System of Units for speed is meter per second, or M per S. Again, instantaneous speed is that collecting the different distance per different time. Excellent. So we should to know the difference between speed and velocity, and there is a bigger difference between speed and velocity, and this is two factors that describe the motion. So to fully describe an object in motion, you need to know both its speed and its direction. So now we gonna talking about new phenomena. Direction. When I collecting the speed and direction, that's called velocity. So when we know both of the speed and direction of object motion, you know the velocity of the object. So speed in given direction of object is called velocity. So velocity, the difference between velocity and speed without direction, but the velocity with the direction of object. So when I talking about this is car that's riding or motion by speed 1020 meter by second, this is speed. But when you're talking about that's go forward or that's go south, that's direction. I collected or given the direction and the speed of direction. So when I put the direction and the speed, that's velocity. But in the I put the number of meter by second only, like 120 meters by second or something, or kilometer by second, that's speed only. That's number of speed. But when I talking about the direction, like forward or south or eastern or something like that, when I put the direction and the speed number, that's called velocity. So we should to know what is the main quantities in physics. We have two quantities in physics. Number one, vector quantities and standard quantities. Vectors quantities, that's only numbers to measuring the some quantities that's not needing any direction. So velocity, speed, that's kind of vector quantities, but standard quantities, that's like velocity, that have the number of speed and the direction. So the standard quantities that need the direction of quantities, and vector quantities that's not needed any directions, only in the number of this is quantity. Excellent. Now all of you should to know what's the difference or big difference between the speed and velocity. Excellent. So when we're talking about the graph of motion, any object in motion, we should to make the graph to describe the motion and velocity and speed. Each point on a line, this is line, you can observe this is figure, that's graph motion, that's describing the motion. So each point in this is line represent the distance an object has traveled during particular time. So Stephens, that's what's the meaning of Stephens? Stephens of a line on graph, its slope. What's the meaning of this word, slope and steepness? Steepness, that's the how amount of or rate for changing the two variables like distance and time. That's what we're talking about, and slope. So steepness, we have different kinds of steepness here. So actually in the beginning of graphing or doing graph for motion, we have to do the two variables of motion, that's distance and time. So the two variable of motion, distance and time. So when I drawing this is line, that's called steepness. That's line difference in kind. Number one, like this or this and this. So we have difference in the shape of slope or steepness. So how I can get the slope for this is line to make the number for the rate of or changing the two variables together. That's what we're talking about in this slide. The slope. Slope tells you how fast one variable change. That's what we're talking about in relation to another variable. So when in motion we have two variables at the distance and time. When it's changing one to another one in this is line, and we can taking the slope to make the rate of change. Again, in the simple word, slope tell you the rate of change. Since speed is the rate which distance change over time, the slope of distance versus time graph, this is called distance versus time graph of line that's divided to what? So we have new word here. So slope, that's equation that's measuring the slope or the rate of change variable to another variable like the distance and time in the graph of motion. So number one, the rise is the vertical change between 2 points. What's the meaning of this? We will explain it by the run. Run is the horizontal change between the same 2 points. How this is happen? So this is graph of motion, and this is two variables, distance and time. We can, or how I can make or calculate the slope in this is graph. We can write the point of changing the amount of distance per time, and make the line between these points, and after that we can make 2 points of distance and 2 points of time and calculate the rise. It's the vertical change between this is two number one like this, number one and 2. This is 2 that. So the rise is the subtract between two number or vertical numbers. So subtract between two, this is numbers that great. And run is the same point of this. So this is point, we can do this and the like this. So the scraps between together or subtracts between this is point like or the same point of this is point vertical, that's horizontal change, or between this is the same point, that's run. So when we collecting the rise and the rain or the run, we can divide this is two number to collect the slope. I hope you understand what I said. So today we gonna talking about the velocity and speed, what's the difference between them, and instantaneous speed and what is meaning of this speed, that is instantaneous speed, and how we collect it by the collected the different distance and different time and divided these two numbers to make the speed, and difference between the speed and the velocity, the vector quantities and standard quantities that's not needed in direction, and this is quantities needed the direction for the amount of this is quantities. And slowness, that's the line that's drawing in the points between the distance and time. So this is distance by time, like this is 4 meters in 2 minutes. So we can collecting the slope like this by rise and rain, by rain plus run, rise by run, like 4 meters in 4 meter in 2 minutes. I hope you understand. We can watching this video and we continue after that.
Motion and movement is all around us. It may be people at a crowded train station, a roller coaster, or someone hitting a jump on a dock. Two ways you can measure motion or movement is speed and velocity. Speed is the rate at which an object covers a distance. It is considered a scalar measurement, which means it measures magnitude but not direction. The unit of measure for speed is meters per second. But you also may see it as miles per hour or kilometers per hour. For example, this plane can travel 500 miles in an hour. Velocity is the speed of an object in a certain direction. It is a vector, which means it measures magnitude and direction. This roller coaster has a velocity of 10 meters per second up. Which of these measurements would be speed and which would be velocity? You can use the formula distance divided by time to calculate speed and velocity. Let's calculate the rate of speed of this walker. The walker can travel 100 meters in 25 seconds. Be 100 divided by 25, or 4 meters per second. This train travels west at 100 miles, and it takes the train 2 hours. What's the velocity? Here it is worked out.
So, boys, you can see here the west, the direction of the train. So here called it velocity, not speed. Why? Because that's the direction and the amount of distance. So distance 1 miles and west is the direction in 2 hours, or the time. So this is velocity, not speed. So this is the difference between velocity and speed.
So there we go, velocity and speed. Time and velocity is the speed of an object in a particular direction. Thanks for watching, and Moo Math uploads a new math and science video every day. Please subscribe and share.
So this is the end of this lesson. Thank you for listening and God